The wrong stop. The train screeched to a halt, iron wheels shrieking against sunburned rails. Dust rose in a choking cloud, curling around boots and skirts. Clara stepped down with her battered case, heart hammering, eyes searching the heat-hazed platform. No familiar face, no man waiting with flowers, or even a hat tipped in courtesy. Just stillness, just stairs. The wind pushed grit across the boards, rattling against the wooden posts of the station. A door slammed somewhere behind her. A child cried, muffled quick. The whistle blew once, sharp and lonely, and the train lurched forward again. Its smoke trailed away, leaving her stranded. Clara gripped the handle of her case tighter. Wrong stop, her mind whispered. She knew it even before she looked at the faded sign nailed to the station wall. Rattler's End. Not the name written on the letter folded in her pocket. Not the town promised. Her boots sank into the dry earth as she stepped off the platform. The road stretched out empty between warped storefronts. A saloon door creaked back and forth. Though no one entered, no one left. Faces hid behind lace curtains. A man leaned against the post of the sheriff's office, chewing a matchstick, eyes never leaving her. Clara swallowed. She tried to speak, to ask for direction, but her throat was dust. The sun pressed down like a hand on her neck. Her heart thumped hard enough to echo in her ears. Then, a tug at her dress. Small, urgent fingers twisting the fabric. She spun, startled. A little girl stared up at her, hair tangled, cheeks streaked with dirt. Her eyes, bright and fierce despite the hunger in them, locked on Clara's. The child's grip was desperate, not playful. She yanked again, harder this time, nearly toppling Clara sideways. "Daddy needs you," the girl rasped, voice raw as creek gravel. Clara blinked, stunned. "What?" But the child had already turned, pulling at her hand, dragging her down the street. Clara stumbled, suitcase banging against her leg. She cast a glance back. The man with the matchstick grinned slow, a grin that didn't touch his eyes. He spat in the dirt. Another figure appeared in the saloon doorway, leaning lazy, watching. Whispers rose behind curtains as Clara passed. The girl didn't let go, didn't slow. Her small arm was wiry with strength born of fear. They crossed the main road. Boots echoed hollow on cracked boards of the sidewalk. A dog barked once, sharp, then tucked tail and vanished behind a fence. The farther they walked, the fewer eyes lingered, until the buildings fell away to open land, sun glaring against cracked soil. Clara tried again, voice shaking. "Child, I think you're mistaken." The girl snapped her gaze up, fierce. "Daddy needs you." No pleading this time. It was command, born of something too heavy for a child. The wind rose, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke. Clara coughed. Ahead, beyond a split-rail fence, a low house slumped against the wide plain. Its windows were dark, its roof patched in places. A horse limped in the corral, ribs sharp against its hide. The girl led her up the steps, through a door that groaned open on rusted hinges. Inside, air heavy with the stench of blood and sweat wrapped around Clara like a blanket. On the bed lay a man. His shirt was torn, chest wrapped in bandages gone brown, with seeped-through crimson. His beard was thick, hair matted, skin pale beneath the dust. Yet his eyes, when they flicked open, burned with a spark that had not died. The girl pushed Clara forward. "She came, Daddy." The man's gaze settled on Clara. He coughed once, a sound deep as breaking rock, then let out a ragged chuckle that cut short with pain. "Not who I was expectin'," he muttered, voice like gravel scraped across wood. Clara stood frozen, suitcase still in her hand. She didn't belong here. She should turn, leave, catch another train. But outside the window, the horizon shimmered empty, and behind her eyelids, the memory of those watching eyes along the street still lingered. She opened her mouth, closed it again. The words stuck. The girl tugged at her skirt once more. "Don't leave." Silence swelled. The only sound was the man's labored breath, the faint buzz of flies at the window, the moan of wind through broken boards. Clara set her suitcase down. Her palms itched with unease. The man's stare cut deep, measuring her, as though he knew something about her, even she had forgotten. Outside, A horse neighed sharp, hooves pounding. Then a whistle. Not the train's. A man's. Long, mocking, slicing through the stillness. The girl flinched. The man on the bed stiffened, teeth clenched against the wound. His hand twitched toward a gun resting useless on the nightstand, out of reach. Shadows passed across the window. Boots scuffed outside the walls. A voice called, lazy and cruel. Elias, you dying yet, old man? Or you need another hole in you to hurry it along? The girl clutched Clara's hand, knuckles white. Clara's breath caught. The world spun too fast. Wrong stop, her mind hissed again. Wrong place, wrong life. And yet, she didn't move. The voice outside laughed, joined by two more. Then, fading, we'll be back, Elias. You and your land'll be mine before week's end. Silence dropped heavy again. Dust motes hung in the dim light. The girl finally whispered, almost pleading now, Daddy needs you. Clara's heart hammered. She hadn't planned for this. She hadn't planned for anything except stepping into another man's waiting arms, another life ready-made. Instead, she was here, in a broken house with a bleeding stranger and a child's eyes staring into her soul. Her fingers shook as she touched the back of a chair to steady herself. The man, Elias, closed his eyes, breath ragged. Yet even in his weakness, his voice rumbled low, certain. World's gone mean. Mississippi Pike's men won't stop till they own it all. You should leave before they catch your scent too. Clara said nothing, could say nothing. The dust outside shifted, as though the very earth was waiting for her answer. The girl still clung to her hand, and Clara did not let go. Shadows of the town. Boots struck the floorboards hard enough to rattle the bottles behind the saloon bar. 3 men stood in a line, hats low, dust on their coats, the smell of sweat and whiskey hanging off them like rot. Every eye inside dropped to tables, to cards, to glasses. No one looked their way. No one dared. The tallest spat in the corner. Elias still breathing. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Saw the lamp burning at his place. The second laughed, voice sharp. Bleeding slow. Man's got stubborn in his veins. The third tilted his head toward the bar. Won't last long, but the girl's keeping him. You seen her? Little stray dragon, some stranger woman around town. Like a lost pup found its bitch. Laughter cracked through the smoke, bitter as gun oil. Cards slapped the table harder. Whiskey poured quicker, but still no eyes lifted. Across the street, Clara felt those words even without hearing them. The girl had led her back into town to fetch water, her small hand never leaving Clara's. Shadows leaned in every doorway they passed. Men smirked from porches, spitting tobacco in the dirt. Women peeked from windows, then shut curtains fast. The pump squealed as Clara dragged the handle down, filling the tin pail. Her shoulders ached, sweat sliding down her back, but her grip stayed firm. She would not show weakness. Not here. Not before the little ones staring at her, with unblinking faith. When the pail was half full, Boots scuffed behind her. She turned. 2 men leaned against the trough, grinned sharp, teeth yellow. Well now, one drawled, ain't you a sight? Thought Elias was too old for courtin'. The other laughed low. Or maybe too broke. Guess beggars do take what strays they can find. Clara's jaw clenched. The girl stepped behind her skirt, tiny fingers gripping tight. She said nothing, only lifted the pail, the water sloshing heavy, and started back toward the road. The men shifted, blocking her path. Where you headed, pretty? The taller leaned closer, breath sour. That ranch ain't safe. Best you come with us. We'll treat you right. The girl's hand trembled in Clara's. Clara met his stare. Her lips pressed thin, her eyes steady. She didn't flinch. She didn't move. For a moment, the man smirked wider, but something in her silence, something harder than steel, made his grin falter. His companion shifted uneasy, spitting in the dirt. She stepped forward. One step, then another. The men parted, slow like dogs sensing a whip they couldn't see. The girl's breath quivered against Clara's hand, but her eyes shone wide with something like awe. By the time they reached the edge of town, whispers had already begun. Behind shutters, beneath hat brims, Elias's woman, steel in her eyes, stranger with fire under her skin. Back at the ranch, Elias struggled upright when the door opened. Sweat glistened on his brow, the wound on his chest seeping through the fresh bandage. "You went into town?" His voice cracked, low and angry. Clara set the pail on the table with a thud. The child needed water. "You'll draw eyes," he rasped, fists trembling against the blanket. "Pike's men don't forgive strangers meddling." Clara turned, her gaze hard, though her stomach twisted with fear. "They already saw me." Silence stretched between them. The child's small head turned from one to the other, waiting. Elias coughed, spit dark into a rag, then shook his head. "Pike won't stop. He wants this land, and he'll bleed the town dry till he gets it." Thunder muttered far off, though the sky outside was clear. Clara sank into the chair by the table, hands folded tight. She had no place here, no promise. Yet the child still pressed close, her face tucked against Clara's sleeve as though it was the only safe place in all the wide world. Night fell slow, heavy with unease. Coyotes howled across the plains. The wind rattled loose shutters. Clara tried to sleep in the chair, but her eyes kept snapping open. The girl curled on a cot near the fire, small body rising and falling in shallow breaths. Then, a thud against the door. Clara froze. Another. Wood splintering. Elias struggled up, teeth gritted, hand reaching for the pistol he could barely hold. The window burst inward, stone through glass. A voice outside, laughing low. "How's the bride settling, Elias?" Another laugh joined it. Boots scraped against the porch. A knife scratched the wood of the door, slow, deliberate. Clara's throat went dry. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She rose, fists clenched though empty. The girl whimpered, eyes wide. Clara's hand found hers in the dark, squeezing hard. Then, sudden as it came, the sound retreated. Boots crunching in gravel. Laughter fading into the night. Silence again. But carved into the door, crude and jagged, the letters gleamed raw. "Leave or die." Clara stared at it until her vision blurred. The girl shivered against her, whispering into the night. "Don't let him take Daddy." Clara's hand stayed firm on the child's shoulder. Her breath steadied, slow, deep. The fear did not leave her. But beneath it, something else began to rise. Something harder. She had come to the wrong stop. She had no reason to stay. Yet in this place of dust and blood, with a wounded man on the bed and a child clutching her side, Clara felt the shape of her own destiny pressing down, as sharp and certain as the carving in the wood. And she did not look away. The making of a hero. The pistol bucked in Clara's hands, the shot cracking against the wide emptiness of the plains. The bullet kicked dust from a fence post 20 yards off. Her wrists burned from the force. She lowered the gun, breath ragged, eyes fixed on the hole she'd made. Too high. Elias rasped from the chair on the porch, voice worn thin but sharp as ever. His bandaged chest rose and fell heavy. "You're jerking when you squeeze. Don't fight it. Let the shot roll clean." Clara lifted the pistol again, arms trembling from the weight. Sweat slicked her brow. The girl crouched in the dirt beside the porch, watching without blinking, as if every twitch of Clara's finger held the world in balance. Clara steadied her breath. The desert wind teased loose strands of hair across her face. She squinted down the sight, jaw clenched, pulled the trigger. Another crack. Splinters leapt from a post. Dead center. The girl hooped, leaping to her feet. "You hit it." Elias's lips twitched into something close to a smile. "Not bad." His tone carried more approval than the words themselves. Clara lowered the pistol, hands shaking. The smell of gunpowder clung to her. She looked at the girl, then at Elias. I never wanted." Her words faltered, hanging in the heat. "You want to keep breathing?" Elias asked, cutting her off. "You best want this." His eyes narrowed, fierce despite the weakness hollowing his frame. "Pike's men ain't stopping. They'll come again. When they do, you'll either stand tall, or you'll fall, and the girl with you." The child pressed close to Clara's skirt, her small hand clutching. Clara swallowed hard, tasting dust and fear, but nodded. Day bled into day. Clara practiced until her arms ached, until her ears rang from the gunfire. Elias's voice cut through every mistake, gruff, merciless, shaping her stance, her focus, her resolve. At night, she scrubbed blood from his bandages, the smell of iron and sweat thick in her nose, her fingers raw from washing. The girl never left her side. She fetched bullets in her tiny hands, filled canteens, carried scraps of wood for targets. When Clara faltered, it was the girl's eyes, wide with hope, fierce with need, that held her steady. One evening, the three sat in the fading light. The sun sank blood-red across the horizon, throwing long shadows across the plain. Elias leaned back, his voice rough with memory. "I spent years with a gun in my hand," he said. "Killed more men than I care to recall. Folks spun stories, made me a legend. Truth is, I was just faster and meaner than the rest. Thought I'd bury that past, raise her," he nodded toward the girl. "Far from it." He coughed, winced, pressed a hand to his chest. "But past don't stay buried. Not out here." Clara watched him, the weight of his words sinking into her bones. She had read of legends, whispered of outlaws and gunslingers. To sit beside one, broken but unbowed, was to feel the raw heart of the frontier beat in the dirt beneath her boots. The girl looked from father to Clara, eyes full of questions too heavy for her small shoulders. Clara set her hand over the child's. "Then we'll make a stand." The next day, she carried herself different. Into town, the same eyes followed her, the same whispers hissed from shaded porches. But now her back was straight, her stride unbroken. The pistol rode at her hip, plain for all to see. At the saloon, silence dropped when she stepped through the doors. Dust clung to her boots. Sunlight flared against the brass of her weapon. Pike's men lounged at the bar, their laughter dying slow. Clara crossed to the counter, ordered water with a voice that carried. No tremor, no fear. When one of the men snickered, muttered Elias's stray, she turned her head, looked him dead in the eye. Her hand rested near the pistol, steady, sure. The man's grin faltered. He dropped his gaze to the counter, muttering into his glass. The room breathed again, soft and uneasy. Clara drank her water, set the cup down, and walked out into the sun. Behind her, whispers rose, quicker this time. By dusk, the town was speaking her name. The ranch became a place of tension, each night heavier than the last. Riders were seen on the ridge, torches flickering. Cattle driven off. Fences cut. Every warning was clear. Pike's patience was ending. One night, Elias sat with pistol across his knees, the fire casting his face in shadow. "He'll come soon," he said. "Pike don't like resistance. You stand against him, you make yourself target. He'll ride hard, and he'll bring hell with him." Clara sat across from him, cleaning the rifle he'd placed in her hands days before. Her fingers moved with practiced care now, her face set. "Then let him come." The girl, curled beneath a quilt by the fire, stirred at her words. Her lips formed a sleepy smile, small but certain. Elias studied Clara long, as though weighing her soul against the stories he carried in his bones. Finally, he nodded slow, grim. "Then you best be ready. Come dawn, he'll test if your fire's true." The wind shifted outside, rattling the walls. Coyotes howled across the night. Clara's grip tightened on the rifle. The girl's breathing softened into dreams. And in the silence that followed, the house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the storm that would soon come riding hard from the dark horizon. The showdown. Hooves thundered against the hardpan, a storm of dust rolling across the plain. Pike's riders came in a black wave, rifles glinting in the first cut of dawn. The sound rattled the boards of the ranch house, shook the loose glass in the window panes. Clara stood at the gate, rifle raised, her dress whipped by the wind. The girl clung to the post behind her, eyes wide, lips moving in a prayer too soft for the storm to hear. The riders fanned wide, circling. Pike at their head, hat brim low, a grin slashed across his face. He raised his hand, and the thunder of hooves ceased as though the earth itself obeyed. "You," Pike's voice cracked the morning. "The stray bride. You think you're a match for me?" Clara's jaw clenched. The rifle stayed steady, pressed to her shoulder. Pike laughed. "Step aside. Leave the old man to die, and maybe I'll let you keep breathing." The silence that followed was heavy, taut as a noose. Clara's reply came sharp, iron in her tone. This land isn't yours. The grin faltered. Pike's hand dropped. Kill her. The riders surged forward, dust boiling. Gunfire split the dawn. Clara fired once, twice. Men toppled from saddles, horses screaming as they crashed into the dirt. The rifle cracked again, her aim steady, unflinching. Bullets tore the fence rails, kicked splinters past her face. She ducked, rolled, came up firing. Another rider pitched sideways, his gun clattering across the ground. The girl screamed, clutching the post tighter. Clara dropped to one knee, reloaded with shaking hands. Sweat stung her eyes, grit biting her skin. She rose, shot again, straight through the chest of the man, bearing down on her with a revolver raised. He hit the earth hard, dust swallowing him whole. The riders pulled back, circling once more. Pike snarled, raising his pistol. He spurred his horse forward, charging, eyes locked on Clara. She swung the rifle up, but the chamber clicked empty. Pike's grin returned, cruel and wide. He lifted his gun. The shot cracked before Clara could move. Pike jerked back in the saddle, blood blooming across his vest. His horse reared, screaming, and he crashed into the dirt with a heavy thud. Smoke curled from the porch. Elias stood there, gaunt and pale, one hand gripping the doorframe, the other steady around his revolver. His body swayed, but his eyes burned with fire not yet gone. The riders froze, staring at the man they had once feared, the name whispered in every saloon. Elias, the gunfighter who never missed. He coughed, staggered, but his voice cut the air clean. This is my land, and any man who wants it can meet his end right here. The silence held, broken only by the whimper of Pike choking in the dirt. His riders shifted, glancing one to another. Then, one by one, they turned their horses. Dust trailed them as they rode off, leaving their leader gasping in the dirt. Clara lowered the rifle, chest heaving, hands trembling. The girl ran to her, burying her face against Clara's side. Elias staggered down the steps, revolver dangling at his side. His eyes found Clara's, a ghost of pride flickering there. Didn't reckon you'd stand so tall. His voice was weak, yet it carried like a hymn. Clara met his gaze, the rifle still in her grip. Didn't reckon I could, but I did. Pike groaned in the dirt, clutching his chest. Clara stepped forward, rifle raised again, her shadow falling long across him. But Elias's voice stopped her. Leave him. Let the dust finish what pride won't. She lowered the rifle. Pike's eyes, wild with hate and fear, followed her as his breath rattled out slow, his hands slipping weak into the dust. The girl clutched Clara's hand tight, her face wet with tears, her voice trembling but sure. Mama! Clara froze, the words striking deeper than any bullet. She knelt, pulling the child close, arms wrapping around her small frame. The sun rose higher, painting the land in gold. Smoke lifted from the barrel of Elias's gun, his figure etched against the morning like a shadow carved into legend. By nightfall, the story would spread, how the lonely bride stood at the gate, how she faced Pike's riders and never faltered, how Elias fired one last shot to end a tyrant's reign. And when the old storyteller's voice carried it across the years, it was always the same. The bride was lonely no more. She found her place where dust meets blood, where a child's hand held fast, and where a dying gunfighter gave his last breath to carve justice into the earth. They still whisper her name, out where the coyotes sing and the wind remembers. Clara, the bride who became fire. The plains swallowed the sound, holding it forever,